feel like Senator Sanders' supporters, and indeed Senator Sanders himself, who was an independent until 5 minutes before this race, do you feel like they have a home in the Democratic Party right now for real? Or do you think the Democratic Party needs to do more, needs to change more in order to be a natural home for those folks?
You know, the way I see this is that there is a very big and important home here, that I think about what's at stake in this election. And I think about what happens if the Republicans have the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Say goodbye to the Affordable Care Act, and that means 20 million people who lose their health insurance, just like that. Say goodbye to Dodd-Frank and all of the financial reforms and efforts to try to rein in Wall Street. Just say goodbye to it, and that means we can go where Wall Street gets to call the shots again. We saw how that worked out in 2008. And say goodbye to a Supreme Court that is truly open and balanced and looking out for the American people. Instead, the Republicans just want to capture a right-wing court for another whole generation. I look at those things and I think about what's at stake. It's literally people's lives, it's our economy, and it is the very fabric of our democracy.
I don't trust Elizabeth Warren. I'm sorry, I do not trust Elizabeth Warren. That was 2016. That was when she came out for Hillary Clinton. Will Jamarl Thomas hit a sundowning man on his knees in order to get Sanders in office? If that man's name is Joe Biden, absolutely. Particularly if it's to get Sanders in office. Warren is different. My issues with Warren are different. My issues with Warren go along with this notion of trust. I don't trust Warren. I'm going to show you 2 clips from 2016. You just saw that one. And I'm going to ask you one question. What is taking place in those clips? Let's have a little bit of analysis of media. Welcome to the Soapbox. You're going to enjoy this. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content and you find yourself coming back to this channel often, please like this video, share this video, and subscribe. And of course, you can always support through PayPal or Patreon. One of my, I think she's a subscriber, at the very least she's on my Twitter page, posted 2 videos of Maddow going back to 2016 and Elizabeth Warren. And, you know, again, any candidate, all candidates, when you're looking at them, you're analyzing their previous political history. It would be weird if you didn't, right? I mean, this notion that, hey, we're just going to move forward. Move forward on what? We'll move forward based on what took place. Meaning you had to be somewhere, and you're telling me I can't look at where you've been? I have trust issues with Warren. I have several trust issues with Warren. Standing Rock, she wasn't there until the party allowed her to go. They rigged it, didn't rig it thing. When she first comes out, yes, they rigged the election. And then the next day after the party gets to her, no, they didn't rig the election. The self-identifying as a Native American thing doesn't matter as much to me, even though it all kind of goes along with the similar thread. I mean, look, my grandfather was Cherokee. You could see it in him. You can look at him and tell. It wasn't 20 generations. It was him. It was him. And I never identified with Native American. I mean, it literally took me to get to the point where I was an adult to have this even intellectual identification of some level with it. And I knew it was there. And I'm supposed to believe that she self-identified with it so strongly that she put it in her records. But okay, fair enough. And even in this election, the reparations, holding her hand up for reparations and nobody even knows what reparations is. But she was using it to hit Sanders. And what I mean by that is nobody knows what it is. It's like when people talk about it, they talk about it in different ways. They have different ideas on what it is. Some people think it's a check. Some people think it's some kind of paying back to somebody else. Some people think it's only the descendants of slaves, etc. It goes across the board. Which one is she raising her hand for? Nobody knows. It doesn't really matter where she just wants the votes. And this is huge to me. You didn't support Sanders. I want you to take a look at this. This is her endorsing Clinton. Let's take a look at the video again. Elizabeth Warren endorsing Sanders, talking to Rachel Maddow.
For me, that's the heart of what the Democratic Party stands for. That is what we fight for.
in order to be a natural home for those folks?
You know, the way I see this is that there is a very big and important home here, that I think about what's at stake in this election. And I think about what happens if the Republicans have the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Say goodbye to the Affordable Care Act, and that means 20 million people who lose their health insurance, just like that. Say goodbye to Dodd-Frank and all of the financial reforms and efforts to try to rein in Wall Street. Just say goodbye to it, and that means we can go where Wall Street gets to call the shots again. We saw how that worked out in 2008. And say goodbye to a Supreme Court that is truly open and balanced and looking out for the American people. Instead, the Republicans just want to capture a right-wing court for another whole generation. I look at those things and I think about what's at stake. It's literally people's lives, it's our economy, and it is the very fabric of our democracy. For me, that's the heart of what the Democratic Party stands for. That is what we fight for. That's why we're in this fight, and that's why we've got to win.
And when you make that case, that's a case about worrying about what happens if the Democrats do not win. A lot of people, I think, not just Sanders supporters, but I think a lot of people look at Donald Trump as the Republican nominee, and they think, actually, my vote is not needed on the Democratic side this time because Donald Trump is a terrible nominee. He's not only going to lose, but it's going to have knock-on effects where the Republicans are going to get wiped out up and down the ballot. Hillary Clinton isn't liberal enough for me. I'd rather write in Bernie, I'll vote Green Party, I'll vote Libertarian or something. What do you say to those folks?
The Republicans underestimated Donald Trump. And look where that got them. They kept saying, no, that's not going to happen. We don't have to worry about that. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this country. He is a threat economically to this country, but he is a threat to who we are as a people. There is an ugly side to Donald Trump that we are.
All right, that's one video, and there's one more. Yeah, right, there's one more. In fact, let's do one at a time. So the first video, what do you think is taking place here? Now,
and indeed, Senator Sanders himself, who is...
They're on MSNBC, propaganda outlet for the Democratic Party. Rachel Maddow wants Clinton elected badly. She has a show called The Rachel Maddow Show. It's not about being balanced or anything else. It's about getting across a certain political opinion. Now, that political opinion, however, is not hers. It's the network's. There's certain caveats in that, meaning she has a certain leeway, like any of the hosts has a certain leeway. And we already know Ed Schultz, Cenk Uygur, Krista Ball all come out saying that there's a certain degree of editorial control over what they can say. This is the perspective of the Democratic Party, despite it being Rachel Maddow. I hope you understand what I mean by that. It's not just an individual doing a show. It's a network putting out a perspective. They allow her to be to advertise that perspective. She wants Clinton elected. She leads a candidate who is in the Democratic Party. And that particular candidate is Hillary Clinton. But Elizabeth Warren is here, and Elizabeth Warren is giving her perspective. Her perspective is, I am endorsing Hillary Clinton. That's what this is. This is her endorsement of Hillary Clinton. You can look at the framework at the bottom. All right. Elizabeth Warren is supposed to be ideologically close to Bernie Sanders. Now, back in 2013, she had already signed a letter to Hillary Clinton alleging allegiance. This, when it took place, was supposed to be somewhat of a bombshell of Elizabeth Warren coming out saying, I'm supporting Sanders. But that support Clinton. But that support had already been given to Clinton 3 years before this moment. Meaning all of this is just theater. All of this is theater. Everyone wanted Elizabeth Warren to give her support to Sanders. Everyone assumed that that support will be given to Sanders because they are ideologically, essentially, supposedly, close. Maybe not a 1-to-1, but maybe a 1 to 8.7. essentially the most lefty person in the Democratic Party, supposedly, because Sanders is not a Democrat, or at the very least he wasn't a Democrat. So her coming out and giving her support to Clinton was a bombshell. Elizabeth Warren is supporting Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren is supporting Hillary Clinton. What is important to note here is Elizabeth Warren is not Elizabeth Warren. It is an avatar for this notion of lefties or progressives, especially those particular progressives in the Democratic Party. And it is a way to come across saying, if I, Elizabeth Warren, the lefty member of Congress, is now giving my support to Hillary Clinton on this platform of Maddow that all of these Democrats watch, then it must be okay to support Hillary Clinton as a progressive. That's what this is. This is not, in and of itself, what it is. There's an overt thing taking place, meaning Elizabeth Warren talking to Rachel Maddow, giving her support to Hillary Clinton. There's that. But the underlying threads of that and the reason that this is taking place in this particular way is because Elizabeth Warren was assumed to give her support to Sanders for ideological reasons. Meaning lefties assumed that she would give her support to Sanders because they assumed she was a lefty. And for her to give her support to Clinton, it to some degree makes it okay for some lefties to, all right, fine. If Elizabeth Warren is going to do it, fair enough. I follow her. I watch her. I think she's awesome. I think she's progressive. Everyone calls her a progressive. And if this progressive is going to give her support to Clinton, then okay, that's what I need to do it. That's what I need to do it. And they go along. That's the entire point of this video. But again, it's all theater. The truth, well, it wasn't a struggle. 3 years before this drama is unfolding on Rachel Maddow, it had already been decided. We were played for suckers. We were played for suckers. And Elizabeth Warren was the center of that particular drama being played out. Meaning Hillary Clinton, whatever you want to say about her, knows how to put on a show. And Elizabeth Warren was one of the lead characters. I want to show you one more video. And we can, I'm not going to keep it long.
You have so much influence with because of the way you talk about these issues.
Exactly.
How a feeling? Do you feel like there's Elizabeth Warren specific advice coming from where you come from with the issues that you care about and the people who you have so much influence with because of the way you talk about these issues? Do you have a prescription for how the Democratic Party's primary should wrap up? Senator Sanders is a...
Oh, by the way, there's one more point for that last video. Did you notice the question Rachel Maddow asked? She said, do you think there's a home in the Democratic Party for lefties, for people who, supposedly are like you? Her answer was, well, yeah, and Donald Trump is going to eat babies. You don't believe me? Let's go back to it. It is almost literally what happened. I mean, maybe not those words. But the question was, do Sanders supporters have a home in the Democratic Party? It's almost as if Elizabeth Warren just couldn't lie.
Senator Sanders' supporters, and indeed Senator Sanders himself, who was an independent until 5 minutes before this race.
Don't be bitter. Don't be bitter. Don't be that person. Why you add that? Why did you add that? Why did you add that? Why did that need to be added? Who wasn't even a Democrat until 2 minutes into the race. Why did you add that? Why did you need to add that? That sounded really bitter. And I would say that whether you're a man or a woman, that sounded extremely bitter and hostile. But okay, let's let that ride. Let's pretend that didn't just happen. And let's finish. That's awesome.
Do you feel like they have a home in the Democratic Party right now for real? Or do you think the Democratic Party needs to do more, needs to change more in order to be a natural home for those folks?
The way I see this is that there is a very big and important home here, that I think about what's at stake in this election.
That's a message. That's messaging. I hope you notice what I mean. That's messaging. That's all of them are on message. They're it's a robotic explanation of it. Like, think of it as, say, for example, you're a surrogate. And as a surrogate, you need to go out and you need to explain something from your candidate's position. And you need to give that message regardless of what the interviewer asks. So when the interviewer says, hey, do you think there's a big home for Sanders supporters in the Democratic Party? Yes. The Democratic Party is a big tent and Donald Trump is a menace and he's going to eat babies and kick puppies. And he's like, the answer, it wasn't a smooth transition between what Rachel Maddow asked and what she had to answer versus the message that she needed to get across. There was a conflict between the things, so it comes across sounding weird when you listen to her. She needed to somehow transition into the messaging, and her mind is on the messaging, and so anything asked goes into the messaging. It's fascinating, but it means she's a surrogate at this point. But again, she was a surrogate all along, right? Here's the second one.
Elizabeth Warren's specific advice, coming from where you come from with the issues that you care about and the people who you have so much influence with because of the way you talk about these issues, is do you have a prescription for how the Democratic Party's primary should wrap up? Senator Sanders has a rally tonight in D.C. He's going to compete in the D.C. primary. He says he's going right through to the convention. We don't know exactly what that means, but he was talking tonight at this rally. He said, you know, when I am president, I'm going to use my executive authority. I mean, do you have a prescription for how this primary should end?
I think that it's clear now that we need to start thinking about all of us together, and we need to think about the difference between us and the Republicans. That's for me what the heart of this is about. But you know, I want to add another part to this because I think it really matters here. And I like our talking back and forth, but I just want to be sure I get this on the table. Get it on the table early. Hillary Clinton won, and she won because she's a fighter. She's out there. She's tough. And I think this is what we need. Look.
What's taking place? What's taking place in this moment? Rachel Maddow, who this weird microaggression of he's not even a Democrat, fucker's still in a race. And so, okay, this lefty progressive member, supposedly, who just announced her support for Clinton, even though that support had been given 3 years prior, that all of this drama amounted to literal drama. I mean, everybody assumed she was going to give her support. She didn't. That support had already been promised. And in this case, Rachel Maddow, what should happen? What should happen now? Most progressive member of Congress, what should happen? Given Elizabeth Warren the opportunity to say what Rachel Maddow already knows that she's going to say, because there's no drama in this moment, even though it looks that way, Sanders need to get out the race and Clinton won. So all of these lefties who appreciate this particular person and support this particular person can now support Clinton because Clinton won. And Elizabeth Warren is telling me that she won. She is, after all, the most progressive member of Congress. And Sanders and her are like a one-to-one. And if she's saying that it's okay to support Clinton now, it's okay to support Clinton now. Nothing nefarious took place. All of this is just drama. It's just drama. It's scripted drama. There's no reality to it at all. This person was a surrogate for Clinton going back 3 years before announcing the fact that she was a surrogate. And she is on Rachel Maddow trying to get lefties to go home and more support Clinton in what literally was cheating, as I demonstrated last week or a few days ago. I don't trust Warren. I don't trust Warren at all. And I have credible reasons for not trusting Warren. And for people who support Sanders have credible reasons for not trusting Warren. And there's a little more basic point of, you didn't support my guy when it was necessary to support my guy, despite the fact that you guys were ideologically, supposedly close. And now you're asking people for their support. How could people ever support somebody that wouldn't support us when the time called for it? I think that's a fair point. For all of these lefties who look at Warren and they look at Sanders and they're trying to make a choice on this matter, when she had the opportunity to support Sanders, she didn't. And she did it for political reasons. And all of this drama about whether she was going to support him or not was really out the window, because that was drama that was allowed to bubble up. When the truth of it was, there was a secret letter already giving her support to Clinton. I don't trust Warren. And last, this is not just back in 2016. This is also now. The gimmick that she is using to get out of the primaries. She is giving you an excuse to get her out of the primaries, at which point she would take money like any other candidate. But think about that for a moment. Think about what that means. For all intents and purposes, she's saying, I'm not going to take money in the primary, but I am going to take it in the general election. And she says, the reason I'm not going to take it in the primary is because I want to build a grassroots network. As if building a grassroots network is somehow exclusive of taking big money. It's not. You can do both. You can do both. In fact, you could probably build a faster grassroots network if you were taking cash. It doesn't make sense. Think about it. Don't take my word for it. Think about it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a gimmick to get her out of the primary so she can get into the general election. At which point, she would take all the money in the world. But she wants you to essentially give her a pass on the fact that she's going to take big money because she's already giving you an excuse for why she's going to take it. In the primary, she knows that people are skeptical of big money in politics. And so she says, I'm not going to take money in the primary. Because she knows she can't even get to the general without getting out the primary. So the gimmick that she uses is, well, I don't want to stand beside Bernie Sanders because he's not going to take big money. And if I take it, it looks bad, at which point people will penalize me for taking that big money. So fine, I'm not going to take it. However, when I get out, I will. Because at that point, you have nowhere else to go. It is an optics gimmick. It's a political gimmick. And it follows with her ignoble career in politics of essentially going with the party whims. I'm putting this forward, basically. I don't want to ding Elizabeth Warren per se, but my issue with her literally is trust. I think of this stuff in a political sense, and this isn't a political opinion, even though it is. I hope you understand what I mean. This opinion is purely my own and very specific in this case. I have trust issues with Warren. And you should have trust issues with Warren also, considering that the other guy is in the race and you don't necessarily need to echo. I don't need to echo when the real thing that created the sound in the first place is still there. I don't trust Warren. And I would say neither should you. She didn't support your guy. Why on earth would you support her? And again, this stuff was just drama, just being played out. I love you, respectively messy, yet on the point. Point ass. Thanks, man. Cool Blue. There are two 2020 Democratic candidates still in the race worthy of the presidency of the United States. Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Yes. Yeah, I don't trust Warren. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but I don't trust her. I look back. She's like, oh, we shouldn't look back at 2016. What are you talking about? What do you mean we should look back at 2016? It literally just happened. Just happened. All right, I'm going to end this here because I don't want the video to go too long, and we've already gone for over 20 minutes. So, like, share, subscribe. Thanks all. I see you momentarily.